Good evening, everyone. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day so far. I got a good one for you today. We got some catch up to do for question period, and this one's from the 29th. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And with no further ado, let's get into it.
À l'ordre.
Order.
Oral questions. Questions orales.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A year ago, the Prime Minister copy and pasted my idea of eliminating GST on building of new homes. But that's the only thing he did because it has just driven up costs. Yesterday, I proposed eliminating GST on houses under $1 million, and the housing advisor of the PM, Mr. Mike Moffat, said that it's the most audacious proposal for middle class housing ever proposed by a political party. Will he accept my idea? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, when the Leader of the Opposition was the Minister of Housing for Stephen Harper, he failed in his job. He only built 6 affordable housing units across the country. Now he's proposing a program that will cut transfers to municipalities and investments that we're making in infrastructure to build more houses across the country. It's cuts to programs and services that Canadians are counting on, that the Conservatives are offering, and we are investing to build homes across the country for Canadians.
But we got to remember that the housing minister himself said that the money that they're investing in, quote unquote, housing in these municipalities, it's not to build housing. It's to incentivize the municipalities to change their ways of their housing plans. And I think I'm destroying that quote, but it's around that much. But I really hope that this increase to the or this new GST idea goes through. I like on the more expensive housing, we don't have to pay GST, but we definitely have to get the lower income ones done as well.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. We're proposing to eliminate the GST on houses under $1 million. And this will save $25,000 on the purchase of a home, an average home in Quebec. That's a reduction of $1,000, $300 on mortgages per year. Will the PM send this money to his program? And even his minister saying his program is not building homes. Will he accept my program to cut bureaucracy and taxes to build new homes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, what the Conservative leader wants to cut is the $900 million that we're sending to Quebec for the Housing Accelerator Fund to build homes across Quebec and the country. He wants to cut and remove $900 million that we're sending to Quebec to build more homes, to solve the challenges that Quebecers, and particularly young Quebecers, are facing. His solution isn't one because it always involves cuts to services and investments in programs that Canadians need. It's not cuts and austerity that Quebecers want. They want investment in a better world. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Took my idea last year to remove GST off rental housing construction. It's the only thing he's done right because, of course, after 9 years, he's doubled housing costs. So yesterday, I came up with another common sense idea. Let me quote his housing advisor, Mike Moffat. The Conservative leaders plan to eliminate the GST for newly constructed homes selling for under $1 million is the boldest middle-class housing proposal released to date from any federal political party.
And that would be awesome. I would totally for like cutting GST off of all housing for first-time home buyers and for private citizens, not for corporations. corporations can pay the GST on whatever houses they want. So they don't need to save that money.
Check my common sense idea.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Over the decades, Canadians learned the hard way. With Conservative promises, you always have to check the fine print. And the fine print on this one is they're going to cut the investments we're making across the country, working with municipalities to cut red tape, to invest in more housing, to invest in more affordable homes, to accelerate permitting and create densification. He's going to cut the services and programs and investments that Canadians are counting on to solve this housing crisis. That's all he offers, Mr. Speaker. Cuts to the programs and supports that Canadians need, whether it's the housing accelerator or housing and infrastructure investments. He's going to build slow homes.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So, as I said multiple times, Pierre Poilievre has never said he was going to automatically cut the funding. All he said was he's gonna make sure that these municipalities are actually putting that money towards low-income housing and hopefully single-family housing as well, so we can actually get affordable housing built. And if they're not using that money the correct way, then he'll cut the funding. Whereas the Liberal government, all they're doing is they're like, okay, here's a bunch of money. This is supposed to be for low-income housing. Do with it what you will. It's not exactly how it works, but that's pretty much how it is. And so the municipalities can take that money, and as long as they're building, they look like they're building low-income housing, and as long as they get a couple of houses built, they can pocket the rest of that money if they really wanted to. The Liberals get to say, oh, we're spending a ton of money on all this stuff and look good, while the bureaucrats in these municipalities get to pocket a lot of money.
He named the two bureaucracies I'll get rid of. One is ironically named the Housing Infrastructure Fund. $5 billion. How many houses is it built? Zero. How many pieces of infrastructure? Zero. Can you even apply for money for it? No. It's just for bureaucrats. Then there's the Housing Accelerator Fund, which his own Liberal housing minister says the fund doesn't go towards the cost of building houses. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes. The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't actually directly build homes. So why not take the money, axe the tax, and build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is intending to cut the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is all about creating densification across our communities, accelerating the permitting and cutting red tape, using more public lands, creating more opportunities for public land to be used for the creation of affordable homes. It's about changing the way homes get built so they get built faster and more accessibly for Canadians. He's about cutting the programs and the services that Canadians rely on. That's what Canadians have learned about Conservative promises. Got to look at the fine print, and the fine print is cuts to things Canadians need.
That's right.
Now, I've been hearing a lot of densification from Justin Trudeau, and I don't know why we want densification. So we don't want a bunch of these apartment, 1 to 2 bedroom apartment complexes that companies can build, and then we'll try to have families in those. No family wants to start up in a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment. They want a single family home, hopefully in the city and hopefully nearby some sort of public transit. So, you can do the old school, the husband takes transit to work and the wife can take the car to do her, take the kids to soccer or get groceries and all that other stuff. That's what families want. An actual house. But the Liberals, for the dwellings they are building, it's apartment complexes. It's not terrible, but it's not what families want.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Cuts to taxes Canadians pay, Mr. Speaker. We will axe the sales tax on new homes under $1 million, saving up to $50,000 on a new home or $2,700 in lower mortgage payments every single year. By contrast, in the last 3 years, the number of young people who have ownership of a home today has fallen by half under this Prime Minister and his incompetent housing minister. So why won't he cut the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, Canadians have learned when Conservatives make promises, you've got to check the fine print. And the fine print on this one is cutting programs that are investing in building new homes right across the country, working with municipalities and delivering the homes that Canadians, particularly young Canadians, need. Now, if the Leader of the Opposition actually cared about young Canadians, he wouldn't be standing against the fact that we're asking wealthier Canadians to pay a little more in taxes to help young Canadians with buying a home, with creating a future, with creating the jobs that they need. We're going to continue to invest in young people for intergenerational fairness while he gives tax breaks to wealthiest.
Kind of like all those public funds that you've been giving to your friends in high places, Mr. Trudeau. I think the Liberals are a little bit more for the rich than the Conservatives are right now. But the taxing the older generations, what he's talking about there is the capital gains tax. So right now the capital gains tax, I think, still is anything over $250,000 is taxed at a 50% rate, and the Liberals want to push it up to 65%. So that's not going to really hurt the super wealthy, because the super wealthy has their money in trusts and has, you know, the rich people loopholes that they know how to get around that stuff, where it's going to be the upper middle class people who are going to get dinged by that, because they're the ones who, when their parents or grandparents pass away, they're going to be passing down their house, which most likely will cost over $250,000. And then their kids sell that house for the money, and then it'll be taxed at a higher rate. So this is, again, one of the things that the Liberals are pushing through. That's going to hurt the poor rather than the rich. So, I mean, we've seen how much the Liberals love the super wealthy through the SDTC and their Arrive scam scandal. I mean, I don't think anybody's believing the Liberals at this point.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, all the parties in this House supported at various stages different measures. One, to help 1 million retirees in Quebec and across the country, and others to support farmers. We gave the government 5 weeks, and then the government said no. I'm wondering if the Prime Minister is saying that our proposal is bad because they voted in favour of it. And why does he not ask the relevance of the question to Quebecers with regard to his election? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, the Bloc leader knows full well that in terms of protecting our farmers, we're moving forward, and we're here to protect supply management. We're here to ensure that the Senate will adopt this legislation or an equivalent bill, because we'll always be here to protect our farmers. In terms of our seniors, we'll also always be here to protect them, whether it's in terms of dental care that has now been delivered to almost 1 million Canadians, particularly seniors. And we're also here to increase the GIS and extend OAS for older seniors. We're always going to be here for seniors. The Honourable Member for Ballet-Chambly. It's like the insane asylum. The Conservatives want to table a motion to get rid of the government. They have to stop filibustering. And now the Conservatives are protecting the government, strangely enough. And now the Conservatives' obstruction seems to be in favour of the Liberals because they don't want to work more. Can we stop this nonsense and trigger an election, Mr. Speaker?
Huh? Was that a bad translation or something? Because he just, criticized the Conservatives about keeping the Liberals in power. The Conservatives have been the only party to vote against. Look at all the Conservatives on the right. Just looking back and be like, we're putting through all the votes of no confidence. What are you guys in the bloc smoking back there? Because I don't know what the leader of the bloc is even saying. I think that must have been a bad translation or something.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We can clearly see who is here in this House to play politics and who's here to work. I will ask the Prime Minister to start from the top, please. Mr. Speaker, we can clearly see who here in this House is here to play petty politics and who is here to deliver for Canadians. It's exactly what we are doing by providing dental care across this country to help almost 1 million Canadians with dental care. And we have been here to invest in more daycare spots, and we're going to continue to be here to deliver insulin free of charge for people who need it, who cannot afford it, and to provide contraceptives for people who need it. We have work to do, and we are doing it for Canadians.
The issue with all of that is, the contraceptives, only half the population needs that, so the other half the population now has to pay for all of that medication. And I do sort of agree with the diabetes medication. It's good that life-saving medication is going to the people who need it. Though I would rather the government put our tax money towards making cheaper medication for it, but that's just me.
Member from Burnaby South.
Rogers is ripping off Canadians with hidden TV box fees. Again, the Conservatives laugh about this while Canadians get ripped off. Very interesting. The Liberals help them do it by allowing the merger, the multi-billion-dollar merger with Shaw, and the Conservatives not only are laughing, but they don't care about it because their Conservative leader gets big checks from Edward Rogers. Oh, that makes sense. I get it now.
Colleagues, in order for us to get through question period in the required time, it's important that members not be interrupted and that the chair can hear the question. And invite the honourable member from Burnaby South to start from the top and to ask his question. The honourable member.
I'm curious if the Conservatives are going to laugh again when I mentioned that Canadians are getting ripped off by Rogers, who is charging them hidden fees every month when they rent their TV box. Now, I know that the Liberals have helped Rogers do that by allowing the multi-billion-dollar merger with Shaw. The Conservatives don't care about helping Canadians because their leader gets big checks from Edward Rogers. But my question is to the Prime Minister. Will he commit today to forcing Rogers to reverse these fees or ban them from receiving any federal contracts?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past number of years, we've seen data fees and cell phone fees decrease across this country because of the efforts this government has brought in for more competition and for support for consumers. We know there's always more to do. We're going to continue to hold the telcos to account to deliver high-quality services to Canadians at affordable prices. That's something that we will continue to be there for.
Here, here. That's right.
I haven't seen that. Has anybody watching seen your internet bill, or I guess if you still have cable, your cable bill going down? My cell phone bill and my internet bill are still high. Our country has some of the highest rates for internet and cable because we have no competition, and we saw that now with like Bell just absorbed a bunch of private companies, and TELUS, well, that TELUS just dominates the West pretty much. Apparently now Shaw and Rogers just combined forces. I mean, it's just gonna get worse, man.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Allowed a massive merger to happen.
In her documentary La Peur au Ventre, Leah Clermont-Dion shows that the anti-abortion movement is gaining ground. She shows how anti-abortionists are pulling Conservative strings. The Liberals, for their part, have not improved access to abortion. When will the Prime Minister finally ensure safe and equitable access to abortion across the country? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as a party and as a government, we always have been here to protect women's rights. We'll continue to do so and to increase access to health care services, reproductive services across the country. At the same time, I share the concerns of my colleague from the NDP. In terms of the Conservatives, and particularly there are members, Quebec Conservative members, that don't say anything when they have to defend women's rights. They don't speak up to fight back against conservative attacks against the women's right to choose. And
that was Jagmeet's question was the dumbest question I could hear in Parliament nowadays. Switching questions to abortion. I mean, if you want to waste your questions, that's all on you. But I used to say that like 80% of Canadians like don't mind abortion and don't want to touch it, but I was actually wrong. It's actually like in the 90 percentile. So the fact that the NDP think that women are having a tough time finding an abortion clinic or self-care or whatever they call it nowadays is ridiculous. And they know it's not, like, no law is ever going to pass in Parliament that's against abortion. None, ever. It would be political suicide. So, I don't know why they're bringing it up. I think they're just trying to take a jab at the minority of Conservative MPs and hand Trudeau a bone. Because Jagmeet is completely in with the Liberals and just acts like he's not.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc has done a flip-flop after voting 188 times to keep this government in power. It's the most centralizing and expansionist government in history. They've kept them in power. They voted two more times this fall in a confidence vote, even though they gave nothing to farmers or seniors. Once again, can the Bloc vote with us to end this government that does less for Quebec?
Will the NDP finally break off its costly coalition with the government and call a carbon tax election?
Again, I listened carefully to the question of the Leader of the Opposition. We've been through this before. At some point, the chair is going to have to cut questions if we continue to have questions which don't deal with the administration of government. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the very angry housing minister has been up all night trying to dream up some snarky comment in response to the very popular announcement Common Sense Conservatives made yesterday to axe the federal sales tax on homes under $1 million. Something that his own advisor, Dr. Mike Moffat, has said is the most bold announcement of any federal party for middle-class home ownership. He took my idea on GST for rental housing. Will he accept this common sense plan to axe the tax?
There's a lot of chatter coming. I can only identify the member from New Westminster Burnaby, but I would warn other members, please, to not take the floor unless recognized by the chair. It's important for question period to happen during the time that it's supposed to happen. The Honourable Minister for Infrastructure, Housing and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, with all the time and energy he spends on me, I'm going to have to send him a check for the time I've been living rent-free in his head. But, look, I got to tell you, yesterday, make no mistake, the Conservative leader announced he would make multi-billion-dollar cuts to programs that will get homes built in this country. Now, he knows that, and we can agree on that piece. What he doesn't know is his caucus colleagues have been going behind his back, writing me letters advocating for their communities to receive funding through the Housing Accelerator Fund because they believe it will get more homes built. My question for the Conservative members of his caucus, will they have the courage to stand up and tell him he's wrong?
No, it's because municipalities need to ask you for money to build the houses because that's kind of how it works. I mean, they can't go straight to the Prime Minister, but maybe that's how he thinks it should work. But I don't know. Anyways, let's the other thing I just heard from Pierre Poilievre is so that GST tax write-off or whatever is only for rental housing. That's interesting. So it's not for first-time home buyers? Something I'm going to have to look into.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's the only rent he hasn't doubled. And nobody else has to tell that member that he's wrong because he told himself. This is what he said about his own Housing Accelerator Fund. Let me quote it. The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't actually go towards the cost of building houses. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes. The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't actually directly build homes. And he's right. Since he started forking over these big checks, construction has gone down in the major municipalities that has received it. So will he cut the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the home?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's, not working. And you know what you should do when something's not working? You should stop doing it. Or you should cut off that funding to tell the municipalities, hey, if you're not going to build any homes, we're not going to give you any money. That kind of seems like common sense. I think the Liberals are lacking just a wee bit.
Ask all members once again, including the member from Hamilton Centre, to please not take the floor. The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, there was a time not so long ago when the Conservative leader was actually advocating the government do more to increase density near the services that people need, where infrastructure already exists. There was a time when he was actually advocating to do something to reduce development cost charges to make it cheaper to build homes in this country. There was a time he was advocating the government do something to actually speed up the process of permitting. Now that we've actually moved forward with billions of dollars of investments that are getting homes built, making changes, he's changed his view and says we should do nothing on any of these programs and blames the government for making the investments he once thought was a good idea. We're going to do what it takes to build homes. I wish he'd join us.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's done precisely the opposite. Since he gave Toronto $500 million, that city hall has jacked up development taxes by 40%. No wonder construction is down 20%. That's probably why Dr. Mike Moffat, the minister's housing advisor, said that it's hard to deny that the Housing Accelerator Fund is turning out to be nothing more than a heist of tax dollars flowing from the feds to the municipality. Wow. So enough with the heists. Won't he cut the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the home?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I sometimes ask myself where they found this guy. He twists the facts to suit his narrative whenever he wants. It's almost like the Conservative Party, when looking for a new leader, hopped on Temu, typed in far-right Conservative, and then spit this guy out instead. He opposes investments in affordable housing. He borrows lessons from his cousins south of the border when he opposes birth control for women. During the January 6th of Canada, the convoy, he wasn't just telling people to stand by, he was bringing them coffee in the streets. Mr. Speaker, it might be election season in America. We don't need this far right-wing populism here at home.
We are so far from American right-wing populism or right-wing American politics that you couldn't even imagine. The conservatives to Americans are like right of center politicians or right of center conservatives. These liberals don't even know what they're talking about. They're just trying to throw out things to make Pierre Poilievre sound evil.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of leadership contestants, that member must be so uptight and angry because the polling shows that though Canadians want to fire that Prime Minister, the Housing Minister ranks dead last in the polls to replace him. And why wouldn't he? This is the guy who lost track of 1 million people when he was Immigration Minister. Right. He ignored warnings from his own department that letting in 200% more people would cause a housing shortage. And his own government spent the last week trashing his entire immigration record. How can arrogance and incompetence so comfortably reside in one man? Yeah!
I gotta say, that is a very good question after his record. I assume the housing minister will not be answering that question.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader asks how arrogance and incompetence can live so comfortably in one man. He manages to show us every single day. Mr. Speaker, let's actually look at the facts. While he's concerned about my polling numbers, I'm concerned about helping people in need. We put billions of dollars on the table to build or repair hundreds of thousands of homes in this country so vulnerable Canadians have a roof over his head. Let's look at his record. The worst level of home building in the last 10 years. And when he had the chance to help the most vulnerable, he simply got 6 units built across the entire country. The only thing he's done to help vulnerable people is show up with a video camera to treat those living without a roof over their head as props, and it's unacceptable.
Bro, he's leader of the opposition. The reason why he hasn't helped anyone build any houses in the last 10 years is because that's not his job. That's your job. You're asking the leader of the opposition to do your job. That does, and you've been in power for 9.5 years. Or, sorry, 8.5 years.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the sum total of the chaos in our immigration system that happened under this government happened while he was the minister. Yeah. His own subsequent Liberal successor has now denounced him and blamed him and his policies for the housing shortfall we have today. And now as housing minister, since he took office, the number of young people who own a home has gone from 47% down to 26% as he builds bureaucracy to block homes. Why doesn't he realize his failure, accept my common sense plan to axe the tax and build the home?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. À l'ordre, s'il vous plaît.
Order, please.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has said there's been consensus on immigration for 150 years. That means he's okay with the Chinese head tax. That means he's okay with not letting Jews in after the Second World War. That means, Mr. Speaker, that he's okay, and we know it already. He was in cabinet. He was okay with the barbaric practices snitch line. How does he want to fix things, Mr. Speaker? He wants to use math. Well, the last time he used math, he was the housing minister, and he could barely count to 6.
And they're talking, now they go back to talking about affordable homes 10 years ago when nobody, well, not affordable homes, like apartment buildings and low-income housing, when nobody wanted to build them and everybody had enough money that they were buying single-family homes. Why would you make low-income housing when nobody wants that and is buying single family homes? So I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why the Liberals, because it's a great statistic that, and people's memories are short. But if people remember back when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, you remember a time where you could actually buy a house and not go into debt slavery.
The Honourable Member for Montcalm. With 1 day to go before the start of advanced requests for MAID in Quebec, the federal government is still refusing to amend the...
Alrighty then. It seems like it's back to the Bloc Québécois. I can only stand their leader. The rest of them, I mean, because I'm sort of from the West, they don't like me and I can't stand listening to them. So I think I'm going to end it there. Let me know what you guys think about the Liberals' housing policies below. Do you think they're good? Do you think they're not? Do you think they're actually building homes? Let me know. And also, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm hoping to get to that 500 subscriber count by mid-November. That would be awesome. Other than that, have a great day, folks.